Yo, so BOOTHILL is about to release very soon in Honkai's Star Rail, and you know what that means. It's time to determine whether it's worth pulling for this character or potentially saving for something coming maybe in patch 2.3 like Firefly or Jade, or maybe something beyond. So let's go ahead and dive into this to try to determine BOOTHILL's value. Let's get into it. I firstly just wanted to say that I have talked about BOOTHILL in previous videos before, such as this one video I put out not all that long ago, where I went over kind of like the value of Aventurine, who was it, Firefly, Jade, and Robin, and BOOTHILL, and I kind of tried to compare their value on who is more valuable to save for and have on your account, because let's be honest, BOOTHILL is a niche character, but he is going to be the first 5-star, truly dedicated break effect DPS. We don't have a 5-star super duper ultra hyper carry character like that yet. So the fact that BOOTHILL doesn't have the highest value out of the most recent characters coming out does not mean that he's not a valuable character. We're just in a very, very powerful time right now in Honkai Star Rail, where every single character that comes out right now seems like a really, really good pickup. And it doesn't really stop, because with Jade, she's also going to be a really, really good pickup depending on what kind of characters you are looking to get on your account. However, with BOOTHILL, admittedly, he's very, very niche in comparison to a lot of the other metas in the game. However, we are shifting right now, and I've talked about this in other videos before, towards a break effect meta, with BOOTHILL being additioned into the game, as well as Firefly coming into the game very soon. And we also had Gallagher, who's actually going to be the first break sustain. And so we have a lot of really, really great pieces that are coming into this game in order to be able to build a very, very powerful, sort of like a break effect dream team, if you will. We've already had Ron May for a very long time, and we just recently got Harmony MC, which is a very, very, very powerful support for break effect. And it's a character that everybody can get their hands on. So even if you don't have Ron May, you can use BOOTHILL. You are not like locked out of being able to pull BOOTHILL or Firefly simply because you don't have Ron May. It's not true. And BOOTHILL's kit works in a way that you don't really have to have these break effect supports behind him in order for him to excel. However, it is true that Ron May and the Harmony MC will be his best supports. However, that doesn't mean you have to have them and build them in order to use BOOTHILL. You can use BOOTHILL. Anybody can use BOOTHILL. His kit has been built in a way that everyone can use him. Just not everyone might want him, but just be aware, he is going to be the most powerful physical type DPS in the game when he arrives. Clara is currently the most powerful, and yeah, she'll still have her value, but BOOTHILL will likely be the more powerful character. That's my estimation at this point, and I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to think that. Clara's a 1.0 character, and BOOTHILL's a 2.2 character. It's natural that eventually some of these characters do get power crafted. Oh yeah, and to reiterate that point that I was talking about earlier about Ron May and Harmony MC not being the only characters that can support BOOTHILL, let me give you an example of another character that could. Well, Silverwolf is a great character that can support BOOTHILL. She's a single target debuffer, and that's been actually something that's been holding her back for a long time, because Pela is an AoE debuffer, and so that's more effective most of the time than a single target debuffer like Silverwolf. However, BOOTHILL is a single target DPS. This means that Silverwolf and BOOTHILL are going to be pretty darn good buddies, because they actually work really well with each other. And to be fair to Silverwolf, her debuffs are better than Pela's debuffs. They just don't usually go enemy wide. But in the case of BOOTHILL, it doesn't really matter, because he's only hitting one enemy at a time anyway, and he locks himself into that dual state with an enemy, and then he is actually only able to attack that one enemy until the dual state is over. And that's perfect. As long as Silverwolf has debuff that enemy, you're good to go. And then she could potentially even switch over to hitting the other mob enemies. That way BOOTHILL doesn't have to focus on the mob enemies, because they've been taken care of from your supports or your sustain, for example. Or if the boss enemy dies, you just hit them once with BOOTHILL afterwards and they're dead, right? So it's actually a really good synergy with Silverwolf, and a lot of people don't necessarily know. I think by this point a lot of people are aware though that Silverwolf is actually a really good break character. Now, you know, you could build the like high attack version of her, you can build the debuffer only version of her, you could build the crit version of her, and there's also a very strong break version of her. And it's a lot easier, for example, to farm the break effect version of Silverwolf than it is to farm the crit version of her, because she doesn't give herself that much crit. So it's really, really hard to build the crit version of her unless you allocate some of your best gear onto her instead of other characters that could utilize it better than her. So it's not worth the farm most of the time. But you're probably farming really good break effect gear for characters like BOOTHILL anyway, so your less like top tier gear can just go onto your Silverwolf and just build a break Silverwolf. She also has a quantum break, and the quantum break is a very, very powerful break in the game. If you hit an enemy 5 times after they've been quantum broken, they will take explosion damage on their turn once it starts. Now, obviously, you're not going to want to break the characters with Silverwolf most of the time. You're going to want to break them with BOOTHILL. He's the break effect DPS. Let him be the one that does the break most of the time. But if she lands a break on a mob enemy that BOOTHILL's not attacking at the time, that just gives you a ton of value, because your other characters don't even have to deal that character that much damage. As long as they hit that character 5 times, they'll take the full extent of the explosion damage that they could have taken, and it's really, really strong. So that's a really strong synergy that I just wanted to point out real quick. So yeah, if you're romantically in love with BOOTHILL, if he's your husbando, if you absolutely must pull him, if the moment he releases you're trying to get on your knees and suck his dick, you can totally do that. Well, not really, because he's not real, but you can totally pull the character and not have to worry about having to have his best, most optimal teammates and supports. There are plenty of characters that can really, really support him very, very well, and because of the way his kit is built, you're not going to be like an absolute, you know, mid-type character, mid-type player if you don't have his most optimal teammate. So I just wanted to reiterate that to you guys. He's not a bad pull regardless of whether you have his best supports and stuff or not. In fact, he's been kind of like labeled a boss killer by many, many people because he can totally just obliterate bosses actually pretty quickly. You know, he's maybe not going to be an Acheron or anything like that, but he is actually very well named as a boss killer because he's a single target DPS character. So who are you going to want to hit with your single target DPS character? Well, obviously the boss. He's basically going to only focus on the bosses, while everybody else on your team is going to be focusing down the mobs while you are focusing down the boss with your BOOTHILL. Now, obviously, that's not the only way you can play him. You can play him in multiple ways, but that's why he's been labeled a bit of a boss killer, because he kinda is. Like, once he actually pops off, he actually really, really deals a ton of damage, and that's why he's known as a boss killer, because even after he gets that break, his damage doesn't completely go away. He still gets to deal a ton of damage because of the way his kit has been built. I'm actually really proud of Hoyoverse for this one, because they make break effect even more fun than it already was with characters like this. And it's very cool to see this, because without having to introduce new paths to the game or new damage types to the game, they're actually managing to sort of like evolve the gameplay already, and we're only in like 2.2. So this is a really, really good sign for Honkai Star Rail that they're innovating the game within the already existing systems that they have. I'm really, really excited for this, because they release more characters in Honkai Star Rail, like twice as many 5 stars per patch as Genshin Impact. And the fact that Honkai Star Rail is innovating so well in this way really, really shows something. So I think that they've kind of like not necessarily future-proofed BOOTHILL per se, but for the time being, he's going to work very, very well. And, you know, I struggle to think of a character that will be able to outshine him, because the break effect meta is truly niche. So even if Firefly is a better break effect character when she ends up releasing, you know, shortly after, that doesn't mean that BOOTHILL won't have a place in the meta, because he'll still be the best physical type break character at the very least, and likely the best physical type DPS in the game in general, even beyond a character like Clara, who will be a better AoE character. But let's be honest here, you don't necessarily need AoE to clear MOC. You mostly need to be able to beat the elites. That's the most important part. And BOOTHILL is going to be a god tier character at deleting elites and deleting bosses. He's basically built for that. And dude, fuck the meta for a second, okay? BOOTHILL is such a cool character, man. BOOTHILL's got like the coolest drip out of any of the guys in the entire game. Think about that for a second. Can any of you think of anybody, any of the guy characters in the game with better drip than BOOTHILL? I mean, Jing Yuan's a pretty good contender. We got Dan Hung and Bibitor Lune, but I don't know, man. BOOTHILL looking pretty sick out there, okay? That's some sick-ass drip. I'd wear that getup in a heartbeat, baby. Look at that cowboy hat. Look at that gun. Look at that gun he's slinging and walking around. Look at them boots he's got on, man. He's a whiskey-drinking, unapologetic asshole. And I love that about the guy. I'm definitely gonna be pulling BOOTHILL on my alt account because that's the account that I basically set him up for. But I guess to be fair, I do pull every single character in the game, whether it's on my alt account or my main account. I do, you know, like to prove what I say, put my money where my mouth is, I guess you could say. I try to like know what I'm talking about when I tell you guys this stuff. I don't spit out a bunch of BS when I talk to you guys. I prove what I say. Every single time, I prove what I say. I have yet to be wrong about one of these character predictions up to this point so far. Fingers crossed, you know, hopefully we keep up the streak. But I have yet to be wrong about the power level of a character before they release because, dude, I've been theory crafting characters since 1.0. Like, I've kind of gotten a hang on this, you know what I mean? And I'm not sitting here trying to toot my own horn. You don't... It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that these characters are either good or, like, not as good as another or, like, maybe more on the mid side. But to be fair, there's no such thing as a bad 5-star in this game, but there's also no such thing as a must pull. So don't feel pressured to pull, like, any of these characters, okay? And if I had to say that BOOTHILL is like either a pull or a skip, I think it just depends on your account. He's one of those niche type of characters where, like, if you're into the break effect meta, then obviously he's a must pull. But if you're not really into the break effect meta, like, at all, then it's the biggest skip of your life. Like, you just don't pull, just don't pull the guy if you're not into break effect. Like, why would you do it? Like, why would you do it? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, I guess you could pull him because he can work without, like, the best, you know, teammates that he could have. He's still good without them, but, like, I don't know, man. Like, just don't, right? And if he's, again, husbando, waifu over meta, pull the character you like over the meta every single time. Because you can just get really, really good supports behind literally any character, including Arlen, and beat the content regardless if you have a powerful enough account. So, if this video is helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe. If you like Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, Elden Ring even, DLC, can't wait, consider leaving that like and subscribe. Anyways, it does help the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace out.